Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Wealth KC short take. I've got a question for Will. Will has one for me. Neither one of us know what's coming. Let's get right into it. Will, I'll
Yeah,
let you go first today.
yeah, awesome. So since the start of September, student loan balances have started to accrue interest now. Payments do start in October, so I figure I would just read some of these student loan statistics to you, and get kind of your initial reaction, and then talk about some best practices moving forward. So, student loan debts in the United States totals $1.766 trillion. Which is a crazy amount. The outstanding federal loan balance, so what percentage of, what the dollar amount of those are federal student loans, $1.64 trillion
So a huge chunk of them, right?
of federal student loans. Yes, 93.1% of all
Wow.
student loan debt is federal student loans, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yep.
A total of 43.6 million borrowers have debt, which is 15% of the entire United States population. Crazy. The average balance is 37,000, but the total average balance of the federal loans is $37,000 per borrower. But the total average balance, which includes private loans, could be as high as $40,000, which honestly was a little lower than I was expecting. But that's interesting. And then, because of the COVID pauses, only 2% of private student loans have entered default as of 2021's fourth financial quarter. I assume that amount's going to increase here pretty soon.
Yeah.
So those, some very, very interesting statistics. Also, since 2006, there's been a 238% increase in total student loan balance. So that's almost 14% a year. But just some insane statistics on those student loans, if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, I'll rapid fire a few here. I feel like this could be a 45-minute chat if we wanted it to be, but yeah, the default rate's definitely going up, right? We meet with these younger folks with student loans and even older folks that are still hanging on to some, and the cash flow's tight on a month-to-month basis, right? I mean, we talked about this a little bit last week. The lifestyles have creeped a little bit while these student loans were in deferment or non-payment, and now that's coming back to the table. So I think that default rate's definitely going to go up. You said the average balance you thought was like a little lower than what you would imagine, somewhere around 40 maybe. Like, yes and no to me, because I still think there are a ton of people holding on to student loans that went to school in the early 2000s, 90s. I mean, we've seen some go as far back as the early 80s, people still holding on to student loans. And obviously it was a lot cheaper back then to go to school, but that interest rate has driven that. But there are a lot of small balances out there as well. And then, I think, there's some changing landscapes around, when to borrow, how much to borrow, and maybe, hopefully, these last 2-3 years of folks going into school, hopefully being a little bit smarter about it, a little bit more conscious about it. So hopefully, my guess is if we can do like a little angle, in the early, it's kind of low and then it spikes up big, like you said, in 2006, I think is what you said. They really started getting up there. Hopefully now they start to cut, the average starts to come back down because people being a little bit more conscious about it heading into school. But yeah, those are just staggering numbers. And the last thing I would say is, do we have a big mountain to climb, to get on the right side of that number?
Oh, yeah. Yep, definitely. I agree with all that. Only thing I would add is, there are new government programs to, pay down these student loans. So anybody out there with questions, we're very familiar with all the options out there. So let us know if you have any questions.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. All right, Will, mine for you. I always come with a visual here. I like visual things here. So I saw this scrolling through Twitter a week or so ago. 1 in 5 Americans say they may never retire. And then at what age, if ever, do you think? And so you see 20% don't think they'll ever retire. And then 33% are age 65 or beyond. And and then 26 said they had already retired. But those are some staggering numbers. 1 out of 5 people says I may never retire. Just what are your thoughts on that number?
So I will actually point myself towards the I have already retired camp because it is so high. Speaking to the demographics in this country a little bit, and that's very interesting to start. But second, the I don't ever think I will retire crowd. Obviously every individual situation is unique, but I think a lot of people just have already given up, right? They don't understand how big of an impact saving, just a little bit of money consistently over a long period of time could help them out. It's kind of sad to see that statistic, but I think it's a little bit of the world is falling, the sky is falling, and I just don't think there's any hope for me. When in reality, if they were to sit down and maybe get an actual financial plan put together, they could figure that some form of retirement is there for them. Right? It may not be lavish trips, every day, but at least they would have the ability to stop working at some point,
Yeah. You said that really well. I'd agree with that. When I first saw this, the only thing I would add is I wonder how much different it would be if we added a second question. That question was, do you think that you're going to be able to retire the way you'd like to?
Yeah.
And I think that is obviously what we're all after, right? Not just being able to retire, but retire your way, retire when and how you want. And from my experience, I hate to kind of end with maybe a sour tone, but maybe we can turn it into an encouraging tone to get help and take this seriously. Is I bet if we asked it in that way, in my professional experience, that number would be 80%. I think this number of 20 to 30% of people never being able to retire is probably pretty accurate. There's a good percentage of those people that just have, the deck stacked against them, right? Whether it's, single incomes or, several kids, or people at and below that poverty line a little bit, like this is going to be a challenge for them, and those are bigger problems we have in this country to solve over the long term, and we don't have the time today to try to solve those. So those folks are always going to be under pressure, and we need to do things to help them. But I think the people above that line, yes, being able to retire, but being able to retire your way is a completely separate question and a completely separate plan of attack when you think about your financial planning. So, I think this is, sad but true. And then there's also that reality of, can you retire your way? So just the positive spin on it is back to what you said first, is that when we sit down with people and build these financial plans, I would say the high 90% of the time, we are able to build a plan for them that gets them to retirement and being able to retire at a reasonable age and a reasonable style. So I think the people we sit down with would make this less than 20. So I wondered if everyone sat down with a financial advisor and built a plan and was able to generate some sort of strategy for themselves, I bet that number would come down closer to 10, of people who felt after they met with a financial advisor that this was possible for them. So,
yep.
Anything else?
I think that's all I had.
Awesome. Appreciate your time. Thanks everybody for watching. As always, give us a call if we can answer any questions for you. Shoot a comment below if there's a topic you'd like us to chat with, and we will talk to you all very soon. Take care.